Hey guys, welcome back and congratulations for getting through Module 1 and Module 2. In the first lesson of Module 3, we're going to be going over risk management. Don't be fooled and think just because this is a really short lesson that it's not important. Risk management is honestly probably one of the top reasons why traders ultimately will fail. A lot of people think that they can take the higher volatility to get the higher return. When it's already too late, they realize they mentally can't handle the 30 to 40% drawdown. Most people begin sweating bullets typically around 15 to 20%, sometimes even 10%. You have to know your uncle point. And this term might be a little bit of a product of my age, but you have to know where you're getting out and what you're doing. You have to know your uncle point. If you were a younger kid, a lot of times, the older sibling or an uncle or whoever it might be would twist your arm until you would say uncle and they wouldn't stop. You must know when you're getting out and what you're risking before you ever get into a trade. You make that decision when you still have objectivity, because once you enter the position, you're going to become a deer in the headlights and you lose that objectivity. Money management, and the reason why this lesson is pretty short, is because it doesn't have to be very complex. Simple rules like risk no more than X percent per trade or X loss in a day will get you 90% of the way there. Simply put, though, you just have to do it. For me personally, I allow myself a max of 3 net losses in a day. What I mean by that is if I had 2 winners to start out the day and then all of a sudden I had 5 losers, it's 3 net losses, so I'd be done for the day. I also only allow myself to have 2 max loss days in a week, and then I'm done trading for the week. It's one thing that a lot of new traders will struggle with, is learning when the proper time is to take off from trading. And it's not when you're making money, it's when you're struggling. So putting in a rule like this is imperative. It's not like that I couldn't come back certain weeks when I do hit a back-to-back max losing days. It's just that it's going to increase the odds of me getting into a drawdown or making foolish decisions. So just avoid it completely. Risk 1 to 2% per trade. I realize that if you're trading a smaller account, it's going to probably be tough to be trading just 1% on a trade. But if that's the case, then you should be trading on a micro account. Try to get it down to as close as 1% as you can. That kind of gives you a buffer, meaning that, to hit a 20% max drawdown, you would have to have a net of 20 losing trades in a row. Never increase your buying power midday. A lot of traders will do this. I typically like to reevaluate everything once a month, but then again, I've been trading a lot longer. My account is going to be a lot larger than most new traders. So maybe look at it at the end of every week. And if you feel like it's a time to up your size and you have the capital that suggests you can up your size and still keep your risk parameters in place, do it and at the end of the week and start it on a Monday. And then finally, for risk management, don't trade during news. This strategy is not built to be any better or any worse during news, but I can tell you that people don't truly understand the risk that is associated with trading news. And an example of that was back when I was an equity trader at GPC. I used to trade news all the time. It was huge volatility. There was a lot of big opportunities to make a lot of money. But the downside of it was it's also when crazy things happen that are out of your control. An example of that was I was extremely long Google after hours. This is back in the day when Jim Cramer would come out with Google written on his knuckles. I was in the money on a position by a lot. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was to the tune of $30,000 or $40,000. Somebody mistakenly placed a B trade or market order with a bunch of extra zeros after it, and in the after hours, it took Google from it had just broken, I think, $500 a share that during that earnings release. But it took Google from about $500 down to $2 in a matter of 20 seconds. And I'm not sure how it works today with equities, but back then, when something like that would happen, they would bust all the trades that were 10% away from the market from when initially happened. And what ended up happening was I literally hit out right above that 10% mark, and I lost a substantial amount of money. It's not something I ever could have foreseen. It wasn't anything of my wrongdoing or my fault. but it's something that, I just learned after that experience and how hard I had to fight to get back from that drawdown is just avoid news. And, there is some potential upside during it, but the amount of risk you have to take and the things that could go wrong, I just don't think it's worthwhile, especially for a new trader. One major blow up or one wipeout of an account can really set you back and maybe you never rebound from it. So I would just completely avoid it. Now, again, this lesson is pretty much over, but go back and rewatch it. Get this sunk in your head. It's so important. It's not confusing to understand. It's real simple. Figure out your risk parameters. What are you going to risk per trade? Your max drawdowns in a day, I would never go, or your max losses in a day, I would never go over 3 net. Again, yes, you may be able to come back on some of those days, but it's going to prevent you from getting into the extreme blow up days where things go really wrong and you're going to have a tough time mentally coming out of those types of drawdowns. Next steps, watch the back testing and sim testing video, and then really the hard work is going to begin on your part. You're going to get into doing a ton of back testing, a ton of sim testing, so get ready for that. But again, just really drive home how important this lesson was, even though it was really short. And set some really strict risk management parameters and don't ever flex from them. We'll see you in the next lesson.